And our first matchup is a tag team match. Lucha Brothers versus the Best Friends. I thought this was a good match for the Lucha Brothers for what they do in a tag team match and for Bryce Remsburg for what he does. So I don't know. What'd you think of this first match?
I thought the match itself was fine. I mean, I think that when you kind of look back on the show, certainly the debuts and the segments are going to overshadow a lot of the in-ring work. But I really didn't have an issue with this match. I thought it was well worked. I thought the tag teams both did a good job. You got a little bit of Orange Cassidy, especially with him falling asleep on commentary there. So good use out of all the guys involved in it. I didn't have an issue with it. Obviously, Pac was missing. I'm going to imagine that was due to travel issues. So, there's that too.
Yes, there definitely is. So I thought for the most part, out of all the in-ring matches, this one was probably the most fluid because there were definitely some botches throughout the night, but I thought this match didn't really have one. I think the only one that really was an issue was the Trent Beretta. I don't know if he was trying to do a suicide dive or trying to do a 619 or something. Something was weird. He tried going through the ropes. He got caught up and then ended up doing a DDT. So he did good improvisation on his part, but at the same time, it was a little weird. And we saw a couple of these weird spots throughout the night, Ralph.
Yeah, I mean, the one that sticks out most to me was probably during the women's match where I think they were both going for like double Hurricane Ranas from the corners, and they both ended up messing up that spot. But yeah, I thought this match was good. I didn't have an issue with this one.
Yeah, and I mean, for what it's worth, I think the stuff afterwards where they interview the Best Friends after the win from the Lucha Brothers, they're talking about a parking lot brawl afterwards. So the question is, when is this parking lot brawl going to happen? They say the next Dynamite, but we don't know when that next Dynamite's going to be.
Yeah, I mean,
is it going to be next week? Is it going to be a month from now? Like this whole situation's very weird, and I don't know if I would. I don't know how I would actually how I would do this. It was weird.
Yeah, I mean, because it kind of goes off of even what Kenny Omega was saying when he kind of alluded to, we don't even know if we're going to have a Dynamite next week. So you got to think there's either concerns about the shows going forward because of the situation with the coronavirus, or you got to think that there might be some revenue concerns there too, because like I said, not many companies, especially wrestling companies in the world, other than the WWE, have the infrastructure to survive something like this, I would think. So I really hope it's not the case where AEW is in a tough spot financially, but either way, I guess we'll find out next week, or maybe even the remainder of this week.
Right. So, I mean, hopefully we get more updates and there is a show next week, whether it is in Daly's place in a closed area. I think part of the reason where they weren't actually committing to next week was because they are using the parking lot of Daly's place and TIAA Bank Field. They were using that. They're using that as a coronavirus testing facility. So
yeah.
I think that's part of the reason why they're still unsure. So, wow, we got a couple super chats coming in. Thank you guys for joining the super chat party. Harold Romero and Noah Crandall, $5.50 for Harold Romero, $5 for Noah Crandall. And while those super chats are in, I do want to bring up tonight, all our super chats tonight are going to go towards purchasing merchandise of independent wrestlers. As you see right now, our studio isn't exactly what you usually see on the Squared Circle Psycho Babble. And that is because once things, normalize again and we're back in the studio together, it's going to look different and we won't have the chroma key. It's going to be the same room, just organized and designed better. And we'd like to dress it up with some merchandise, and what better way to support the independent wrestlers than getting merch to help our studio and also support them in a time where they're not going to be able to get bookings. So
yeah,
thank you, Harold. Thank you, Noah. Harold says, I rewatched the Brodie, Lance, Matt Hardy segment so many times. It was awesome. And we will talk about that a little later on the episode, but I do want to say the Matt Hardy segment of Dynamite this week has already surpassed 1 million views on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So very interesting. That's the impact of AEW basically. So, and then Noah Crandall says with what's going on, should Blood and Guts be on TNT or still remain a pay-per-view? It's not a pay-per-view. It's on TNT.
Yeah, it's just like one of those special events, I guess. Like
like the homecoming show.
Yeah.
Bash at the Beach. It wasn't a pay-per-view. It was just a special episode of Dynamite.
Right.
So, I would. It's definitely still has to be a TNT special. If the show goes on next week, Blood and Guts is next week.
Right.
So, we'll see. I mean, some people might say wait till you actually get a crowd because the lack of a crowd is definitely going to be a hindrance. But like I said before, I don't know if anybody heard because we were having the audio issues before, but I thought the crowd, I put air quotes in because we had MJF doing his thing, and I thought he really brought a different feel to the show. And I think one thing they did very well was have talent around the ring, and also the fact that the hard cam was in front of the Titantron in the entrance, not focusing on the crowd or the lack of seats like WWE is. It made it a little less weird than watching Raw and SmackDown.
Yeah.
So moving on to the show, AEW Dynamite, we had the Fatal 4-Way. In the women's, it was Riho, it was Penelope Ford, it was Hikaru Shida, and Chris Statlander. I thought this match was pretty good. Very good women's match. I know the women tend to have a lot of criticism for the time being, but at the end of the day, this match was good. Penelope Ford looked good, except for that one very scary missed Hurricanrana from the top rope where she landed on her butt, but was able to look good. Recovered very nicely on that. Did a reverse Poison Rana after that. Was very scary, that spot there. But Hikaru Shida picked up the win. I was surprised. I thought they were going to build up Penelope Ford with this big win and get her into the top 5 rankings.
Yeah, it kind of seemed that way. But you know what? I actually think Hikaru Shida is one of the more technically sound women's wrestlers on the Dynamite roster. So I was actually happy to see her pick up the win. A couple of clunky spots throughout the match, but I got to agree with you. The one springboard reverse Poison Rana was pretty cool. That was a good spot. Overall, again, not a bad match. It was fairly solid.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I think the goal of getting Hikaru Shida a big win here, plus making Penelope Ford look good, I think was the intent, and they did a good job with that. So,
right.
And then moving on, we had another tag match here. It was the Jurassic Express. No Marco Stunt. He was out of this show because he was sick. Now we don't know why. He just said he was under the weather. So it could be something as simple as a cold or something related to what's going on. Hopefully, we wish the best of Marco Stunt. But the Jurassic Express go against the Butcher and the Blade, and once again, the Butcher and the Blade lose.
Yeah, these guys, it's like they can't even sniff a win. They haven't, I don't know. It's kind of weird because they're kind of limited, I guess, on, aside from the Inner Circle and, like MJF, It's kind of like they're kind of lacking in the top heels, especially maybe tag teams. I mean, you have the Death Triangle, but I don't know. It's just like they refuse to book them well. They don't ever win.
No, they don't. And I don't understand it because I really like the Butcher. I think he's got a very interesting look. I think he's good in the ring. I think the tag team itself worked the gimmick of the match very well. It's just for some reason they build these guys as like a threat, and they haven't won anything to tell me that they're a threat.
Right.
Sorry, they haven't. So, maybe I know we talk about guys that should be in AEW because of how they're mistreated in WWE, but maybe the conversation has to start that they're being misused in AEW as well, and this is the first real situation of that.
I mean, it could be. It stinks because especially when you kind of consider some of the previous storylines they've done with them, I should say. So They tried to use them as like MJF's hired mercenaries aside from Wardlow. They haven't really done much there. Yeah, and it's just weird because when you think about it, like you got this one guy, the Butcher, who is a fairly big guy, especially
Yeah.
for the one knock on AEW is the fact that they have guys that aren't necessarily that big or that intimidating, and they don't really utilize them. And not only that, I mean, if you watch a good majority of their matches, the Butcher, who is a bigger guy, he's usually getting taken out, or a smaller guy's always getting offense in at the expense of him. So
Right.
kind of head scratching, but that's kind of what they've done with him to this point. So I guess it really shouldn't be surprising to us.
Right. And I know they want to get the wins for Jurassic Express because they're one of the more over tag teams
Yeah.
in the division in
Yep.
AEW, and Luchasaurus is possibly the most over singles wrestler outside of the main event picture. So it makes sense that they gave him the win here.
Right.
But I mean, can you find another tag team that people aren't really seeing every week and they want to push as a threat? So, I guess that is what it is. Hopefully later on this year, the Butcher and the Blade get a good run. But afterwards, MJF was a little upset with the loss because he actually paid the Butcher and the Blade to do something to the Jurassic Express. Didn't go well. And we get a match announced later on in the evening that we're getting a lumberjack match of Luchasaurus versus Wardlow.
Yeah.
You think that's a little too early for this match to be announced?
I mean, a little bit, because if you think about it, I mean, Wardlow, he's had one match and he lost to Cody, which he looked really good in that match. And then when you think about Jurassic Express, granted they're over, but they haven't really had that many highlighted wins to this point.
Mhm.
So,
But is this really considered a highlighted win now because the Butcher and the Blade just keep losing every time? I think they have one win as a tag team.
right. Yeah, no,
So-
I mean, I'm not saying it's a highlighted win. It's a win, which is always good, especially in a company where they say the wins and losses are going to matter most for the rankings. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So just before we head on further into our review here, there was a question about what we're doing with the Super Chats tonight. So I just want to clarify that. So we understand that a lot of the independent wrestlers are not going to be having bookings because of what's going on. And unlike those under contract with WWE and possibly AEW as well, they don't have a consistent source of income during this time because they're not getting bookings. So what we're doing here is anybody that wants to donate to the Super Chat, we'll answer your question, read your comment. We're going to do a Q&A after the end of this review as well. And all the money that we raise for the Super Chat, we're going to use to buy merchandise of independent wrestlers to use in our studio that you'll see on episodes of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. So your donation is going to go towards, one, the independent wrestlers you know and love, and two, something that you'll see every episode of the Squared Circle Psychobabble here on the YouTube channel. And if you're new to the YouTube channel, for news, reviews, and conversations on all things pro wrestling, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. All right, so we're heading into hour 2, and I think this is where things really kicked off for AEW Dynamite, like the really good stuff. And most of the stuff that we saw, was pre-produced or stuff outside of the ring, including this very good video package, which was led up by a Jake Roberts promo that was awesome. So starts off with Jake Roberts doing another awesome promo on Cody, and then we get this very cinematic lumberjack style match with Lance Archer basically beating up on all these different guys. I love how the ring said everybody dies in the middle. And it just really showed what Lance Archer can be as a threat to AEW without necessarily having him have a match. It was a very awesome way of doing this.
I loved it. I loved everything about the whole segment, starting with Jake Roberts promo straight through that video package. I think that the one thing that stands out to me about AEW, especially is the vignettes that they put together. They've always been good. Every single one of them that I can think of off the top of my head, starting with Wardlow's to the one that or a couple that they've done with Pac. This one, they did one back with the Butcher and the Blade and MJF. this is like high level stuff. I mean, it doesn't look like it's low level. It doesn't look like it's shoddy. It doesn't look like it's low budget. I mean, it looks like they're paying somebody to put these together, and it's eye catching. Like it's something that's actually something you want to pay attention to and get involved in, and when you compare it to WWE's, which, they have a huge budget, but those two in comparison, I think AEW right now is doing the best stuff as far as video packages in all of professional wrestling right now. I like this part. I like this a lot.
Right. Thank you, Nick Jimenez. Actually, someone we met in person
Yep.
at NXT Takeover last year. He donated $5, joining the Super Chat party. He says, "So cool of you guys. Do you think both companies should continue with these empty shows or take time off to work on booking and writing?" I mean, because here's the thing. What else is there to watch as someone that, is part of their target demographic, as someone that is part of that male 18 to 49 demographic? What else are you going to watch? There's no sports. There's no, there's no live events really other than professional wrestling.
Right.
It is weird. It is very weird what we are watching with no fans. However, I think AEW did a very awesome job at hiding the fact that it was an empty arena, but yet knowing the situation at the same time. So I think if AEW could continue what you're doing, continue it. And you listen, they got a lot of guys that know TV production outside of the ring, and like they're actual wrestlers, like Brandon Cutler, Jimmy Havoc, I think has a film degree. QT Marshall, I think, has video production experience. The Young Bucks, obviously, with their blog. They don't have to have everything done in the ring. And it could kind of be a mix of being the elite and what people saw in Lucha Underground. Like a very theatrical production. It'd be different. It'd be weird. But I think it could work for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, and if last night was any indication, yeah, AEW can certainly make this work to their favor. When you compare it to Raw and SmackDown or anything else to this point, I mean, I think they did it best. Granted, there was a lot of intrigue going into the show because of the Exalted One, kind of everything that's been going on with Matt Hardy, or people wondering if he was going to debut, which he did, obviously. But it's not just that. I mean, look, they're starting to get things, even though it's empty arenas, it seems like they're starting to get a stride going. And we talked about that the past couple of weeks, so they're getting top level talent. They got Brodie Lee, they got Lance Archer, they got Matt Hardy now. So that helps bolster the roster. That helps make it more impressive, more intriguing too. So
yes, and you bring up Brodie Lee, and that's the next segment of AEW Dynamite here. So the Dark Order come out. It's Evil Uno, it's Stu Grayson. I don't think John Silver and Alex Reynolds were there, but if they were in a mask. I know there were other people in masks there. So they come out, they're talking about the Exalted One. Then Christopher Daniels interrupts, and he says there is no Exalted One. You've been lying to us this whole time. You haven't made John Silver better. You haven't made Alex Reynolds better. You guys just, this is all fake. Then we cut to a video package of the Exalted One. Right. And he is revealed to be Brodie Lee, and he had an awesome line in this pre-produced package here, taking a little jab at Mr. McMahon, saying that Christopher Daniels is not the only old man who didn't believe in him.
Right.
Awesome line there. Awesome beatdown. Great way to introduce Brodie Lee. Just wish this would have had such a better impact had it been in Rochester, in his hometown.
Yeah.
So very, very good segment. So where do we go from here with Brodie Lee? Does he or the Dark Order? Is this going to be now another trio team of Brodie Lee, Evil Uno, and Stu Grayson? Because it seems like we're getting more and more of these trios to eventually get a trios division. Do you think that's where we're going with this? Another trio just to add to that division?
Could be. The one thing that I would think is going to happen is they're going to be adding more people to the Dark Orders, and there's two reasons to say that. One, Brodie Lee, signing him, obviously that adds a little more credibility to the group because, I mean, going back to when they originally debuted in AEW, nobody took them seriously. So adding him certainly helps the group out as a whole. And the other thing, I think going back a couple of weeks ago, they said that, the Dark Order is a much larger international group or whatever they called
A
it.
corporation.
A big corporation. Yeah. So I got to think that they're going to be adding more members to this. That doesn't mean that they can't compete as a team or group of three. But to this point, I think that we're going to see at least a couple more people debut or become members of the Dark Order.
Do you think there's too many factions? I see a couple people talking about they have way too many factions or saying it hitting the overload. I don't think so.
It doesn't feel, it doesn't feel like it yet. It's not where like, these groups or these factions are stealing TV time away from one another. They all seem to still get like a set amount of TV time. So as long as it doesn't like you aren't hitting like the law of diminishing returns where, now all of a sudden you can't feature a team that's over because there's too many guys. I think it's all right. I said that a couple of weeks ago too. I said they're adding a lot of factions, but as long as they can make it work, I don't think it's an issue.
Right. So then we have the 6-man tag team match to close out the show. It's representing the Elite. It is Hangman Page, Matt Jackson, and Cody Rhodes. And for the Inner Circle, it is Jake Hager, Santana, and Ortiz. But Chris Jericho is on commentary. Sammy Guevara is in the crowd singing along to Judas, which was horrendously funny.
MJF joined in too.
MJF did join in. I don't like. I do karaoke when I can. I try to claim I'm a good singer. I'm more of a guitarist than a singer. But man, that was terrible singing by Sammy Guevara. It sounded like the drunk fan that has no clue what he's doing in the crowd, thinking he's in with Jericho. But the problem is he's in with Jericho. So it works and it doesn't work, but it was funny nonetheless. I still like the sing-along for Sammy Guevara, especially that he didn't know the lyrics halfway through, especially the chorus, which everybody knows.
Right.
The match overall is pretty good. I like the finish here where it looked like Matt Jackson and Hangman Page were finally getting along, doing some tandem offense. Looked like we were getting some form of the Indie Taker or Buckshot Lariat into an Indie Taker, whatever the case may be. But Jake Hager pulls Hangman off the apron. Santana pulls a quick roll-up pin for the win. Jericho cuts an awesome promo.
Yeah.
And saying how the number, the Inner Circle have 5, Nick Jackson's out, so the Elite have 4. They're going to win blood and guts and whatever. As this promo's going on, though, we see a drone come in. So we only know one person who's associated with a drone, and that is Matt Hardy.
Yep.
So Matt Jackson goes on the mic and says, "You're wrong about us being outnumbered because there's a friend of mine that owed me a favor for what I just did for him." And out in the crowd, out in the building, deep in the building where the crowd would be, is Matt Hardy. Now, I wonder if they did this because they weren't sure what's going to happen next week, and they wanted to make sure they introduced everybody and make sure this was such an impactful episode, regardless of the lack of crowd, that they wanted people to talk about this episode like, man, we're getting Brodie Lee. We're getting an awesome package from Lance Archer. We're getting incredible matches. People were even talking about Brodie Rhodes as the ring announcer. Like, everybody was praising this thing. It was a very good episode. It really was. And I did like that they threw in Matt Hardy because I thought it was either going to be Matt Hardy or Jon Moxley. And they did interview Jon Moxley earlier in the night where he came in on the car that he stole from the Inner Circle. So I thought that was a good touch. I liked it. I thought storylines progressed. I thought the matches were good. You really can't say anything wrong about the show other than some very noticeable botches, Ralph.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. Like, even though, AEW was a company that was going to pride itself on the in-ring stuff, which I didn't really have an issue with any of the in-ring stuff. There was a couple of things here and there, botches. But, I mean, you're going to get that on any night in professional wrestling. It's just, it happens, But I mean, the video packages, the debuts, everything, the storylines progressing. I thought that all of it was really well done. It's continuing to follow like a linear path. They're not really jumping into anything too fast. They're all kind of letting it build, whether it's the feud with Lance Archer and Cody, kind of the tension between the within the elite, I guess you would say. So yeah, I thought it was a great episode, especially considering you didn't have the crowd when that's one of the things that people look forward to for Dynamite is the crowd and the interaction. But still a solid show with or without the crowd last night.
Right. So I thought it was a great show. MJF was a nice touch in the crowd, gambling with Sean Spears on the matches. I thought the commentary did very well, especially at the end, making it seem like, holy crap, Matt Hardy is here. Taz was a good, nice touch here. Tony Schiavone as the interviewer was good. Jim Ross and Excalibur were good. Like I said, there really wasn't anything bad about it. Even I loved how when they put the wrestlers in the crowd, they had the baby faces on one side and the heels on the other side. Like these little things, and it's the same as how they enter the ring coming out of the tunnels.
Yep.
The faces come out one way and the heels come out another way. It's such a nice touch that such a small detail, but yet goes a long way. So that's the stuff there that makes you think AEW is just the better product right now. Those little details, the production value is very, very good on those packages, very cinematic. The storylines are awesome. And it showed tonight. Like, it shows you don't necessarily need a crowd. It definitely helps, but you don't need a crowd to progress a storyline.
Well, not only that, but they just added 3 guys that bring a ton of credibility to their roster. So I think when you think of some of the people who are critical of AEW and they talk about dealing with guys or having guys on TV that aren't necessarily ready for national TV. You add a guy like Matt Hardy, who is, a legend in professional wrestling. You add Lance Archer, and you have a manager like Jake Roberts for him, which is great in itself.
Yeah.
And then you add a guy like Brodie Lee, who is just another one of those guys who worked in WWE, was probably somebody that, was either overlooked or somebody that fans probably feel like he didn't get enough credit or enough opportunities. And he was put into he now has this opportunity in AEW to show what he's really made of. So, even though the shows have been good all throughout, AEW and Dynamite since the debut, now they're starting to add more credible guys to the roster, which are only going to help.
Right. And I know some people talk about, they're just taking old WWE guys to draw ratings or whatever. Isn't that the point?
It should be. I mean, and Lance Archer's not a WWE guy, so.
Well, he did have a short stint in NXT, but that was long, long ago. I mean, he, if anything in the United States, he's more known for his time in Impact Wrestling than anything.
Yeah.
But obviously, he made a name for himself in Japan, especially what happened at the G1 Climax this past summer. So people are asking about the ratings. Do we really need to go over the ratings? Like, AEW kicked their ass. They kicked NXT's ass.
Yeah, it was bad. Yep.
What did you expect when NXT puts on 2 hours of pre-produced packages and AEW actually had wrestling matches, actually had promos, actually did stuff? Like, basically, NXT was a recap of why we should care about Finn Balor, why we should care about Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, why should we care about Rhea Ripley and Charlotte Flair. It was all good, but between that and watching something live and authentic, obviously people are going to watch that.
Mm-hmm.
And, the ratings last night shouldn't even really matter because, you look at the top 20 shows of the night. I think only Real Housewives of New Jersey was the only non-news related show that hit the top 20 besides AEW.
Right.
Let's not dwell on the ratings, guys. And this is coming from someone that works in television full time. People are going to be watching this COVID-19 shit for a long, long time until it's over. So the ratings are basically obsolete because that's live same day ratings. No one's watching stuff live unless it's live, like AEW
Right.
was. So it's a very, good for them. They were able to pull in 932,000 viewers. So, that was awesome. But, you have 2 million people watching a 2 o'clock broadcast of CNN. So that usually doesn't happen.
Right.
So you could talk about the ratings all you want. AEW won, but honestly, this is one of those weeks where let's not dwell on ratings. We know what's going on. It's a very weird situation. So, yes, AEW won the ratings, but I'm not going to say, I'm not going to wave my AEW flag going, hey, we won. Because they put on a live show. That's the difference. So
Yeah, and when you think about it too, it makes sense that they had they had the higher viewership because you did have all of this with, the tease of the Exalted One, and you had to think it was either going to be Brodie Lee or Matt Hardy. Those were probably the two heavily rumored guys that were going to be debuting as that individual, and you actually got both of them. So, of course, it's going to be higher rated, I would think, or higher have more viewership.
right. All right, guys. So now we're going to do a little Q&A. Get to, if you guys want to ask us any question. Doesn't have to be wrestling related. I mean, obviously we'll answer those, but actually, Harold Romero, thank you for joining the Super Chat party, $3 again. Also enjoyed Uno's promo staring at cameras and viewers. Yes, that's another thing that the AEW guys were doing that WWE wasn't doing on their live broadcasts is when they were cutting promos, other than Edge, no one was looking in the cameras on Raw and SmackDown. No one was playing to the cameras. They were playing to an empty crowd. Even Stone Cold Steve Austin was playing to an empty crowd.
Edge
Evil
didn't.
Uno, that's what I'm saying. Other than Edge, Edge was the only one that actually played to the camera. On Dynamite, all the promos, they were staring at that camera, especially Evil Uno. That guy had a dead stare at the red light of the camera that was on.
Yep.
That was very good. Got you focused on what he's talking about. So that was very good. And thank you for bringing that up, Harold. That was, totally thing. But back to what I was saying. If you guys want to donate to the Super Chat, ask us any questions regarding AEW, WWE, NXT, New Japan, whatever wrestling, any, personal but not too personal questions. We will answer them. And if you donate to the Super Chat, we are using the money that we raise in the Super Chats today to help support independent wrestlers. We're going to buy some merch to hang up in our studio. When Ralph and I are both in the same room, in the same studio, it's going to look different from what we usually do in the chroma key. We're actually going to hang some stuff on the wall and make it look pretty instead of some graphic that I made in Photoshop and chroma keyed in every episode. So donate in the Super Chat, ask a question, and we'll go from there. So I'll just, for now, just go through the live chat, see what questions came in already. AEW fans asked, do you think they should wait for a live crowd for Blood and Guts? They already amped it up for next week. So I would say, as much as we would love it with a live crowd, you got Matt Hardy there. And that means Rebby Hardy's there too. If you could do the production value of like a total deletion with Blood and Guts, I say go for it.
Right.
So, David Reed, who do you see Mox's first AEW title program against? It looks like he might be either having a rematch with Jericho or I would say MJF because he's still at the number 2 slot there. So I would say yes.
Yeah. And not only that, but
or,
it seems like Cody's going to be transitioning into a feud with Lance Archer. So that frees up MJF.
Right. Let's see. David Scott asked, do you see a scenario where TNT puts AEW on hiatus if they can't continue with non-crowd setup like last night? If TNT can still pull in money from advertisers, regardless if there's a crowd or not, they're not going to pull the plug on them because there's a lot of money involved with AEW being on TV. They obviously want a return on investment. So I do not see them pulling the plug unless they feel like the advertisers are leaving because there's no content. The fact that AEW is putting on live content is actually in their favor. honestly. What do you think, Ralph?
No, I agree. I mean, it's obviously concerning because, like I said, really, with all this going on, WWE is probably the company that's set up to kind of come out of this unscathed. But,
Mm-hmm.
as long as AEW can produce good quality content and assuming they're not, losing a shit ton of money by putting these shows on,
Right.
why not? I mean, it's obvious they're still entertaining regardless of having a crowd or not.
Right. Ethan Taylor asks, has Matt Hardy signed with AEW? Now, it's a good question to ask because Jeff Cobb has appeared on Dynamite and he's not officially on the roster.
Yep.
Until I see an actual report saying he officially signed with AEW, I will say no for now, but I'm pretty sure the writing's on the wall. It's not like Matt Hardy wants to go wrestle in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I think the only thing that may make it not where he's officially in AEW is if he wants to do a run in NWA. Other than that, I think he is signed with All Elite Wrestling.
Right.
But I'm not a journalist. I'm not reporting that. That's just me guessing and speculating based on what I've seen. Smalley Pierre asks, what will it take for AEW to touch 1 million? And that is 1 million live same-day viewers. If you watched my episode where I explain how ratings work, here's the answer. 50 plus. They do terrible. So does NXT. Get the 50 plus. All the shows on TV that get 1 million viewers do well at 50 plus. That's how you do it. Let's see. Wow, this is going kind of fast here. Hungry Xenomorph. Do you think that the situation could become an opportunity for AEW to get more people to watch since we are all on lockdown? Yeah, and that's the same for WWE and NXT. And I think that's a big reason why WWE is continuing with WrestleMania. As much as I hate the fact that they're doing it, I like the fact that they split it into 2 nights. But I think they see this as a way of, look, people are going to be locked down. They might be interested, other than the news, what else is there to watch? It comes back to that. What else is there to watch besides the news?
Yep.
The Masked Singer is not on every night. That might be the only other show I would watch on TV right now. And I could watch that the next day on a DVR or Hulu. And the same thing could go for AEW. Some people might record AEW because they want to know what's going on and watch it later. That's the beauty of the DVR right now. So, what do you think about that, Ralph? Do you think this is an opportunity or do you think they're wasting their time?
No, it's certainly an opportunity. I mean, look at the situation. Yeah, you got a lot of people who are sitting home bored off their ass and, there's no sports going on. Granted, a lot of people are going to be invested in the news as they should be to kind of keep up with what's happening. But no, I mean, look, if people are home, they need to be entertained, and it's respectable on not just on AEW but WWE to be putting on shows that are trying to entertain people and get their mind off all the craziness that's going on in the world right now.
Right. And guys, if you guys want to donate to the Super Chat, please do so. Not only are you supporting our channel, but you're also going to be supporting independent wrestlers. All the money that we raise in the Super Chat tonight will go towards buying merchandise of independent wrestlers. We're going to use that merchandise to build our studio or hang on the walls of our studio when Ralph and I are back together in the same room, do the social distancing, because if you guys know, we're like 2 feet, less than a foot apart from each other usually. Let's separate ourselves, practice social distancing. That means we need a bigger wall. So,
yeah.
And why not hang it up with some good merchandise, and why not do it with independent wrestlers? So thank you all for asking the question so far. Very good. Doesn't have to be AEW related. Anything. Doesn't even have to be wrestling related. We'll ask anything. It's a ask me anything, like on Reddit. T-Ray asks, do you see more WWE guys leaving? I heard they are getting less pay when they start running fewer dates. That was before the outbreak. I heard something about the Revival, Ralph. The Revival apparently are getting less pay because whatever was guaranteed to them has already been paid, and they're not on TV, so they're just getting basically the minimum that their contract allows. They're obviously leaving.
Yeah, I think
unless
they're
they
out.
are.
I think they're out of there for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely leaving. Definitely leaving. Uh, so are more gonna follow suit if they see guys like Matt Hardy have a resurgence, or Brodie Lee, or Chris Jericho, even or Moxley. I bet you some WWE guys that are discontent with their position in the company. But then again, you got guys like Ricochet, where everyone's complaining that he is getting buried, yet he goes on Twitter and says, I'm just glad to be here,
Yeah.
basically. So we don't know until we actually see it. So thank you for the question, T Ray. That was a very good question. Let's see. What other questions do we got here? David Scott, guys, considering so many people are home, what about WWE giving free access to anyone for WrestleMania? Wouldn't drive significant viewership versus network subscribers. I've seen this thrown around on social media, Ralph. Let's see what you think. What if they put WWE WrestleMania, the 2-night special, on Fox?
I think a lot of people would watch it. Definitely.
Yeah,
Granted, yeah. It's going to be weird either way because you're talking about a WrestleMania that you're used to having the big crowds and all of that stuff and the big moments, but you're just not going to have that this year. That's the reality of it. So, anybody who's watching it, I think a lot of people are tuning into whether it's wrestling, whether it's AEW, Raw, SmackDown, UFC, even. I think people are kind of tuning into these shows right now just to kind of see what it's like, get an idea of what's going on. Um, I don't think it would necessarily be a bad thing to have it on Fox. I think that Fox would definitely pay them a pretty substantial amount, but you also got to consider how much would they be willing to pay with a WrestleMania with a crowd versus without. So
that's
there's
true.
that too.
When we were starting to talk about the whole, the pay-per-view rights getting sold to ESPN or Disney or whoever,
Yep.
I thought about this from the get-go, like put it on Fox, because I bet you they could probably draw 5 million viewers on Fox, and that was before this whole thing started. Now that we have this where people are in lockdown and might be, they hear that The Undertaker is going to be on. They hear that Edge and Orton are having a last man standing. Brock Lesnar, Goldberg versus Roman Reigns. 5 million doesn't seem that hard to get, especially if it's going to be on broadcast TV. And what is Fox going to put on Saturday night and Sunday night when it was probably going to be some kind of sporting broadcast, or you have the animation domination? Like, I know people love Family Guy and Bob's Burgers, but WrestleMania, I think, would be a better moneymaker than those two shows, as much as I like Family Guy. But
Yeah.
there was a good question I just saw here. Actually, there was a $2 donation. Thank you, Harold Romero, again for donating $2. Did you watch the AEW Dark match between Abaddon and Hikaru Shida? I saw bits and parts. I don't even know if I'm saying her name right. Abaddon, whatever her name is. She's freaking creepy. Did you see this match or
I didn't see the
pictures of
match,
her?
but I've seen all types of pictures and all types of fan feedback about her.
It's like she is a character from 28 Days Later, like one of the zombies from 28 Days Later. Freaky as hell. I don't know if that was a one-off or a tryout or if she's going to be on the roster for a while, but if they sign her, they could do some really weird stuff with her.
Yep.
Really weird stuff. Here we go. I think this question is for you, Ralph. It's from Ty Kane. How come you never smile?
There you go. I don't. It's hard
is.
to smile at a time like this. I'd much rather be in the studio recording, and it's just a lot of shit going on. So
Yeah. Well, it's always, I think what it comes from is how we introduce the show, and I'm the one that's doing the talking, and you're just, what are you going to do? Because I'm talking. So you just stare at the camera with this like death stare, like basically.
yeah.
So, but yeah, that's why, Ty. It's nothing personal. It's not like he hates the world. It's just, what's he going to do? Does he want to look like, what the heck's his name from Fixer Upper? That's always smiling, grinning like an idiot.
Chip Gaines.
There you go, Chip Gaines. Hate that guy. Christian Ramos, will MLW still air on Showtime What's the news on them? Pre-recorded on hold until you know what is over. I thought they were on BN Sports. I didn't know they were on Showtime. Huh. Well, I think they stopped everything until June. I know NWA did too. I think both of them are kind of on hiatus right now. Mike the Butcher, do you like Wu-Tang? Like the Wu-Tang Clan? I'm not a rap fan, so no. Do you like Wu-Tang Clan, Ralph?
Never really got into him too much.
Yeah. Do you think it's time to have a mid-card title in AEW? I would say there should be at least something, whether it's going to be the trios that seems like they're building, or a mid-card title. I think something like what NWA does with the TV title and have a 6-minute, 5-second time limit, I think is very, very cool, very innovative.
Mm-hmm.
I think AEW could do something like that, maybe a YouTube title where that title goes on the line on AEW Dark, or an internet title where either it's on Dark or the pay-per-views, something like that could be an interesting title to have. I know it's not exactly the mid-card title people would like, but got to be innovative with some of these titles because you don't want to be like WWE and just have titles just to have a title.
Right.
So if you were to have a mid-card title, if you were AEW or Tony Khan, what would you have the next title be?
Well, I mean, I think that they certainly could have something like, even if it's like an IC title, like if you compare it to WWE, right? Because I think right now MJF obviously is a heel that's going to be in the championship picture right now. But I also could see him carrying the secondary title kind of as just the guy that's supposed to go out there and cut promos and talk about how good he is. I mean, if there's one thing that he's really good at is going out there and cutting a promo. Now, granted that he's not the champion and granted that AEW only has one singles championship right now, he only gets the opportunity to do that when he's in a feud with somebody or eventually when he becomes the champion. But if you were to create like a mid-card title and put it on a guy like MJF, I think that would be great because that would give him an excuse to be on the show every week to go out there and cut a promo because they don't always utilize him that way.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree. So next question here from AEW fans. Do you think WWE has to replicate AEW and have heels and baby faces as the crowd? Otherwise, it's going to be depressing as hell. Yes. I just said that in the review earlier. Like, they need to do something because it's freaking weird watching Raw and SmackDown with no crowd.
Well, Triple H definitely made SmackDown much more appealing and, fun. So,
but at the same time, Byron Saxton was a complete idiot during the Austin segment.
That's true. And Raw was kind of more or less, you had the Edge promo was good. The Steve Austin thing was, I don't know. That's, as a huge Steve Austin fan, to see what he once was to going out there in an empty crowd, empty arena, that kind of sucked. But then the majority of the whole show was just the Royal Rumble match. So, I mean, what are you going to do?
And I think WWE is just going to continue that, let's fill time with these classic matches. And I forget who threw it out there. I think it was Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful.com and said, do you think we see on Friday, tomorrow, on SmackDown, the match from WrestleMania 30 of John Cena versus Bray Wyatt? And it makes sense to play that because it plays into their current situation with their match heading into WrestleMania 36. Would you agree?
Yes. No, I'm sorry. There's like a delay here and I keep getting cut off from your audio. So it's kind of weird. It's all right. Yeah. But it keeps either going staticky and cutting in and out.
Yeah. It's the beauty of the internet, Ralph, unfortunately.
Either way.
Beauty of the internet. So, when we're using Wi-Fi and OBS Studio and Skype, this stuff isn't exactly broadcast quality crap. So, but we're doing we're doing the best of what we can. We appreciate you guys supporting the channel. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. And if you want to donate all the money tonight is going towards buying merch for independent wrestlers, support them in this very weird time where they can't get any bookings. So we want to support them because without independent wrestling, we don't eventually see them in WWE or AEW or New Japan or anywhere else. So, yeah. So let's move on to the next question from Cheapskate Gamer. Do you like Brodie Lee as the leader of the Dark Order, or is this move just too obvious? Should they have went a new direction with him? I always said that he already had the background of the cult thing already, so it was kind of weird just to put him back in it. But maybe he was okay with it, and it is a good situation. So I'm okay with Luke Harper as the leader of the Dark Order. I thought Matt Hardy was way too obvious for this, but you're talking. I think it really came down to 3 people at the start of the month, and I did a whole episode explaining how it was one of these 3. It was either going to be Lance Archer, Luke Harper, or Matt Hardy. Ended up being Luke Harper. So,
Yeah, I don't think it was. I mean, I guess it only seems obvious because it was one of the guys that was heavily rumored to be put in that situation. But I think at the end of the day, it's probably the right call because he helps build or give credibility to that group, and they didn't necessarily book them strong until they decided to go kind of all in on them.
Right. Yeah. So I think it actually was a good move. So let's see. Are there any other questions coming in? Thank you guys for submitting the questions. And again, super chat to help support us and support independent wrestling. All the donations going to purchase merchandise to support the independent wrestlers who are out of bookings due to what's going on right now. Robert Bailey Jr. Good question here. Will AEW utilize Murder Hawk Mansion? That's Lance Archer. That's where they did the first package. And the Hardy Compound for future Dynamites. Would you like to see AEW stylized like Street Fighter with sets and background scenes going forward? I don't know about going Street Fighter-esque. But I do think if Matt Hardy is officially signed with AEW, I definitely see them doing some kind of deletion episode or make Blood and Guts a deletion episode. And I think the Murder House Mansion, I think, is going to be another one, Ralph, where they use that to help build Lance Archer for the time being, knowing that they're going to be limited with what they can do.
Yeah, I probably agree, but I think they should limit that a little bit. I think it with Matt Hardy especially, that's something special as part of his character. I think Lance Archer, they don't necessarily need to do stuff like that with him, especially because he's going to be in a feud, it seems like, with Cody. So, you don't want it to seem too. Look, the knock on professional wrestling is always going to be by the somebody who's not a wrestling fan is they're going to look at it and they're going to say it's fake. The more you do stuff like that, the more scripted it's going to seem to a non-wrestling fan. Like wrestling fans like you and I and anybody who actually watches it are going to be more open and receptive to that type of stuff. But to the average Joe who either watched wrestling during the Attitude Era or just somebody who doesn't watch it at all would probably turn that on and say, this just looks too scripted to me. So I don't know. I think in small doses it could work.
Right. No, I totally agree. I wouldn't do it every week, but I think given the circumstances right now and the situation that they're in, I would totally be okay if they made the Blood and Guts match at the Hardy Compound.
Right.
Because you don't need all these different wrestlers. You can have Rebby Hardy do some awesome editing with that. And you can make a whole 2-hour episode leading up to that and using why Matt Hardy has joined the Elite. I think it would work in that situation. We got a $2.99 donation to the Super Chat. Thank you, Corey MacArthur, for joining the Super Chat party. He simply asks, does anyone watch AEW Uncensored podcast? Have you watched it yet? It's Tony Schiavone and Aubrey Edwards. interviewing different people from
I,
AEW.
I listened to the one with Moxley. I haven't listened to any. Well, I think I
I saw
listened to two.
I heard Cody's and I heard a little bit
Yeah,
of
I did hear
Moxley's.
Cody's too. Yeah. So
I haven't gotten to Tony Khan's yet, but
me either. The one with Moxley was very good, but that's the only one I can recall. Listen, I want to say I listened to at least part of Jericho's, but for some reason I can't really remember it. But
yeah.
Moxley's was very good. He actually details coming up from the independent scene and really being a guy who wasn't very recognized and didn't have a lot of credibility at first, but eventually getting signed to WWE, which they actually got into that in depth, which I didn't expect them to do, but they did. So I thought that was very good.
Yeah. I really like the podcast. I like the idea of it. And they're getting the right. Obviously, it's an AEW centric podcast, so you could get anybody from AEW. It's going to be interesting when they start interviewing guys like Matt Hardy and Lance Archer, Jake Roberts. Those would be some interesting episodes for the future. I'd like to see. So, here's another question from Cheapskate Gamer Ralph. What is the one wrestler that AEW needs to sign to make that push to 1 million viewers? Guys, let me stress this. Don't focus on the 1 million viewers, okay? AEW sees 1 million viewers in the 7+ ratings, which is numbers that we don't see. They get the 1 million viewers. They're just not the same day. They're not live. And that's because the 50+ demographic just doesn't watch. They don't watch NXT either. So it's not like they're choosing NXT over AEW. Neither one of them do good in the 50+ rating. So if you want to get that guy to get the 50+ rating and to get them over 1 million viewers, it's going to be a guy like, I don't know, like Stone Cold Steve Austin or The Rock or Hogan or one of those mega, mega, mega draws, once in a lifetime guys. And let's be honest, AEW doesn't. I mean, if they could get them, sure, but that's not what they need to do.
Any name you say right now is going to be somebody that the AEW fan base doesn't want to hear or recognize.
Right.
It's going to end up being like to get them over that hump to like 1 million consistently would probably be like Cena, Undertaker, Brock Lesnar, like somebody established, somebody who's going to like draw big numbers. Like when you look at Raw this past week, Stone Cold Steve Austin came back and there was a huge spike, or a noticeable spike, I'll say, in viewership. And that's because he's a proven draw. He always has been.
Right.
At least as the Stone Cold character. So
and even then they drew like what, 2.5 million?
A little over, I think like 2.7, something like that.
Right. So, I mean, like the ratings, like people harp on these ratings, and this is again coming from someone that works in television. Like you don't need to really focus on this because there's only two groups of people that care about ratings: the TV execs, and the advertisers. That's it. If they know you're watching, they're gonna buy. That's it. So don't worry if it's 932,000 or 1 million. Really doesn't make that big of a difference, especially in today's how ratings work and the numbers that they actually draw. So, Robert Bailey Jr., thank you for your $5 donation for joining the Super Chat party. Been a wrestling fan since I was 3 years old in 1988, so roughly around the same age we are, Ralph. You guys keep giving me a chance to expand my wrestling knowledge. Thanks for being around. Well, thank you for the donation. Thank you for the comment.
Thank you for the support.
Yeah, thank you for the support and being someone that was my first wrestling memory. I was 2, and it was the Ultimate Challenge, WrestleMania 6. That was really, well, I was turning 2, I should say. That's really my first wrestling memory. Do you remember your first wrestling memory?
Well, I remember watching a lot of Hulk Hogan when I was really young.
Yeah. I mean, we used to watch
I think
WrestleMania. Go ahead.
Which WrestleMania did you say was your first experience that you can recall?
6.
I remember when Warrior returned to save Hogan. I think that was WrestleMania 8.
That was 8. Yep. That was 8.
I remember seeing when I remember being haunted by this as a kid when Papa Shango put a curse on the warrior and he threw up all the green shit.
Yep.
I remember that.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Uh, basically, my first real memories of wrestling were watching over and over again WrestleManias 6, 7, and 8. And even when I watch the WrestleManias now, getting ready for this year's WrestleMania, the first ones I usually watch are 6, 7, and 8. And then I'll go around and pick and choose.
I'll show you guys this because it actually came up on my my Facebook memories today. If you could see this, so you see
All
that
right.
there, guy with the mustache.
That's our dad.
Yep, and he was at I believe it was Monday Night. No, I don't even know if
Yeah, it was a
Monday
Raw.
Night Raw.
So the top picture, put it up again, Ralph. Put it up again. So the top picture here, that was the Shawn Michaels Mr. Perfect brawl on like the 4th or 5th episode of Monday Night Raw. And then the other one at the bottom, that is a picture of us. You only can see my dad, but we are there too. That is the first ever fan fest at WrestleMania 10 in New York. We were there. You can see my dad. So
Yeah. The picture I just showed you, the top one with the brawl between Shawn Michaels and Mr. Perfect, that picture is actually in Shawn Michaels' book.
yes, it is.
So
It is. So, and those pictures were actually taken while watching the WWE Network, screenshot and then upload them to Facebook. Yeah, nice way to go down memory lane. But back to the current events. Big D asked, do you think Jeff Hardy will sign with AEW? Depends how much time he has left with WWE. I know they tacked on time for his departure right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I honestly, I think he's better off in WWE, honestly. One of the very rare occasions where he definitely is better off in WWE than in AEW. And Matt Hardy needs to separate from Jeff anyway, not just from, their stuff outside of the ring, but, Matt Hardy, if Matt Hardy's with Jeff, they're going to try to tag team them as much as possible. Even if the broken gimmick, you still have Brother Nero there. So Matt needs to be a singles competitor for his sake. Archer versus Cody in the Hardy compound. What do you guys think? If Matt Hardy's not in the match, why have it at the Hardy compound?
yeah, I think that could be pretty interesting if they decide to do that.
Mm-hmm. Do you think AEW should sign someone like Su Yung? I know Su Yung just became a free agent. She was a pretty big name in the women's division of Impact Wrestling. Let's focus on getting the women that they have now on TV and get them recognized before we start signing other women to the division. I think Su Yung could be a good piece, but at this time, you got Statlander, you got Sheeta, you got Penelope Ford, Sadie Gibbs, who got a freaking package. Was it Double or Nothing? We seen her on one episode of
just
Dark?
one time, and you haven't really seen much of her.
Right, and I know she's training with I think Dustin and QT Marshall at the Nightmare Training Facility or whatever that's called. So either way, but I wouldn't sign unless it's like Tessa Blanchard, like the biggest name in the women's division. Let's not sign just everybody, right? Let's cool off with the signings. You just signed 3 big names in the industry with Matt Hardy, Brodie Lee, and Lance Archer. Let them breathe a little bit. Because eventually you're going to have too many people and you don't have time, and then you're going to have 3-hour shows, and we all know how that turns out. Are there any other questions? Do you think because of the Steve Corino virus? Oh, Steve Corino virus. That's what Wrestle Talk calls the coronavirus. WWE will add on extra time to contracts. I don't think they can legally.
I don't know.
I'm not a lawyer on that one. Do you think that Tessa Blanchard or Natalya should sign with AEW to help their women's division? Yeah, I think either one would be great for their division because, Natalya is a well-respected wrestler in the wrestling industry. A lot of knowledge. Obviously, with the Hart family, he would be a great asset to, teach the next group of women wrestlers. I just don't think she would ever leave WWE. Tessa Blanchard, her contract's going to be coming up soon in the summer. So the question is, does she continue with Impact Wrestling after she is like their top champion? What else can she do?
Right.
She already won their top champion, not top women's championship, their top championship. So I don't think they do, I don't think she stays in Impact. What else is there left?
Right.
Now the question is it WWE or AEW? And I think she will probably go to AEW, would be my guess. Next question here. Brian Cage, do you think he will be in AEW? Well, the rumor was he already signed, but he's injured right now. So if the rumor's true, once he's healed up, he is going to be in All Elite Wrestling.
Right.
Although I think he's like the prototypical Vince McMahon guy, but maybe a little too flippy floppy to get booked as like a top guy in WWE. So he probably is better off in AEW. Next question. Do you think this will be the Undertaker's last WrestleMania? I hope so. The way they're telling this story would be a good way to go out.
He actually looks like he's in really good shape too.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, if he puts a guy over like AJ,
yeah,
it would make sense.
It would, but I don't know if personally, I think the best way to do this match, especially after the promo that we got last week, not this past Monday, buried alive match. That would be the way. That would be the way to. Now, obviously, it's harder to do at the Performance Center a buried alive match, but that would be the way I would do it. I would have booked this as a buried alive match, and it seemed like the way AJ cut that promo, he was hinting on it being a buried alive match. So, but unfortunately, because of the circumstances, it's probably just going to be a simple one-on-one match,
right?
Or maybe even throw in a casket. Either way, and if he does the casket and he loses, the only way to have him send off is how he lost the casket match at the 94 Royal Rumble, which is one of my favorite moments in wrestling history. I don't know. Do you remember this, Ralph?
Yeah, and he came through the Titantron.
Yep. That was so awesome.
Yep.
And this was way before people's like production values were really, really good. The stuff they were doing on that thing. And if you guys have the WWE Network still and are, wherever, stuck in lockdown, watch the 94 Rumble.
Yeah.
Just that championship match. Let's see. Are there any more? I think there's a couple more questions coming in, and then we'll head out because my voice is getting kind of dry here. W had me screaming at my TV. WWE has me. Okay. Yeah. Basically, he likes what he's seeing. Yep. Any more question, guys? Any more? Again, thank you all for donating on the super chat. We're using that money tonight for tonight's live chat to support independent wrestlers. We'll buy some merchandise to use on the walls in our studio. Once Ralph and I are back together, you'll start seeing that on the episodes of the Squared Circle Psychobabble. So follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at SCPB Podcast, and we'll take pictures of all the merchandise when we start hanging the stuff up. So, I'm not seeing what is AEW getting a video game. It's all but announced, I think.
That's the rumor.
That's the rumor. Would Matt Hardy be a better pick as the Exalted One?
I don't think so. I think Matt Hardy's his own thing.
Yeah, he needs his own thing. So I would not have had Matt Hardy be the Exalted One. And I mean, I wouldn't have picked Brodie Lee either, but they needed a big name, and Brodie Lee was probably the next best thing besides Matt Hardy. And I know people are saying, well, it was supposed to be Marty Scurll, but that was, counting your chickens before they hatch kind of thing, where they thought they had him signed, and obviously they didn't. And he goes to Ring of Honor. So Christian Ramos, I heard that the Rhodes are huge on Alexa Bliss. Do you think she would ever leave WWE because she had a lot of complaints losing her spot to UFC fighters like Ronda and Shayna? Well, Ronda and Shayna are legit fighters, are good in the ring, and at least Ronda can draw. Shayna is still to be determined, but I mean, it's up to her if she wants to leave WWE for AEW. What do you think?
I mean, I think that they could definitely, their women's division can definitely use somebody like her that has some credibility. I don't think she gets enough credit because people are always like, "Oh, she's not that good in the ring," and I think she's fine. I mean, I think she's really good on the mic.
She is. She's very good on the mic.
If she went to AEW, I think it could only help them. I don't think it would hurt them in any way. So why not?
Right. No, I totally agree. And I think she's a little underrated as a wrestler. I know there's some podcasters out there, one with a very loud, nasally voice that really craps on her as a wrestler. I don't think she really needs that much criticism. But I think she's very good on the mic. She's very good I would say decent in the ring. And probably better than most of the women in AEW right now, just because a lot of them are just green, honestly.
Yeah.
So, all right, couple more coming in, and then we're going to head out. Someone asked, how have you guys been holding up since the coronavirus? Honestly, today was the first day I was actually able to be in lockdown because I was stuck at work. I had to go to work basically every day until yesterday. I got the okay to come home and work from home. And I was actually taking the trains. I was doing all the things you're not supposed to be doing while this is going on. And I've been okay. So I know Ralph is in a different situation, but you've been holding up though, right?
I'm going stir crazy. It's stressful. I have asthma. It's not fun. It sucks.
Oh, come on. Smile. It'll be okay. We'll all get through this together, Ralph. There it is. Do you guys think AEW will do a 6-man tag title? It seems like it.
They got enough 3-people groups to do it, so maybe.
Seriously. Between, let's see, we got, if you count the Elite, Kenny and the Bucks, the Inner Circle, whatever 3 they want to take from there, the Death Triangle, Jurassic Express, Best Friends, SCU, the Dark Order, now with Brodie Lee. That's 7 trios right there. So I think that's really what the next title is going to be. I think we're getting a trios division. Thank you, Cheapskate Gamer. He actually says that you have a sub. Thank you very much to our new sub there. Very awesome. Ty Kane says, tickle me Elmo, Ralph. Ty Kane's really on your case with the smiling. We'll work on it. It's like Diamond Dallas Page, where he was trying to teach Christian to smile, and he was like,
yeah,
that stupid face that he was doing. Preston Snow wants you to do a Meltzer impression. I can't do Meltzer. Ralph does a good Meltzer impression.
I can't do it right now.
It's hard to do it with Skype. It won't really give it the justice, but Ralph does have a very, very good Meltzer impression.
Maybe if there's enough demand, we'll set up a TikTok account or something.
Oh, I know everyone's on the TikTok thing, so maybe we got to get on TikTok. You know, between there's like I could do Excalibur, you could do Dave Meltzer, I could do Howard Finkel. I know Howard Finkel was like my first ever impression I could do. So, no. But my throat is really, I forgot to bring water, so I don't think I could do Howard Finkel right now. But eventually, as we do more live chats, if you guys want to, request this stuff, donate to the super chat, we'll do it. It's hard with this Skype thing. It's going to be hard. Someone saying, you guys be careful, wash your hands, stay blessed. Thank you very much for the comment there.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a possibility that Raven could join the Dark Order? No, that was just a red herring.
Yeah, they don't need
one-off red herring.
Yep.
How about an Eli Drake impression? I can't do Eli Drake. Can you? You can't do Eli Drake.
Maybe
Let me talk to you.
Maybe I've listened to him enough.
Yeah. Eli Drake. I don't know. That's not good. Do you think AEW will sign EC3? Maybe. Now people keep asking us to do different impressions. This is going to end up being an impressions podcast, Ralph. No one wants us to do Michael Buffer.
Oh, God.
No. Let's see. I have tried Michael Buffer before. But when it comes to ring announcers, it's definitely Howard Finkel that I could do. But, but yeah, Michael Buffer's not the guy I could do. I think that's it. All the questions are coming in, Ralph. So final thoughts on this very interesting live chat that we just had with our audience here.
Well, thank you for anybody who donated. Like we said, we're trying to definitely support independent wrestling because obviously this is a pastime and a sport that we all have a passion for. So trying to help those out who are having some troublesome times right now because they can't work and can't support themselves and their families. So thank you guys, whoever donated. Thank you for supporting the channel and hope to do it again soon.
Yes, we are, while we're all in this lockdown, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, we're probably going to do a little bit more of these live streams now that I figured out the audio. After it seemed like the first 2 or 3 minutes we were having issues with it. Thank you for those that stuck around when that was going on. Someone's saying you got to have a low voice to do Buffer's voice. Yeah, probably. But again, guys, thank you very much for joining us on the Squared Circle Psychobabble for this. We just wanted to go on here and just really talk to you guys. I know we did review AEW Dynamite, but at the same time, we wanted to interact with you guys. We're going to have some very interesting, episodes coming up. Our next episode, we usually do a news roundup, but honestly, the news is too depressing to talk about. So we're going to do a classic pay-per-view review. We've never done one of these before, Ralph. I know a lot of channels do this, but this is going to be our first one. See if you guys like it. We're going to be reviewing WrestleMania 17. So, many regard that as the greatest WrestleMania of all time. So if you want that, and you're new to the channel,